In the summer of love, America thought it had found paradise. Peace, love, and free expression swept the nation. But behind the flowers and music, a darker force was growing. One man would twist the ideals of the counterculture into something terrifying, a story of manipulation, fear, and brutal murder. This is the life of Charles Manson. Charles Mills Manson was born on November 12, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio, to a 16-year-old mother, Kathleen Maddox. His father vanished before he was born, leaving him to grow up in poverty and instability. Kathleen was a heavy drinker who spent time in prison for armed robbery. When she was incarcerated, Charles was placed in foster care and reform schools, places where abuse and neglect were common. By the age of 9, Manson was already in trouble with the law. Petty theft, truancy, and running away became routine. His childhood was a revolving door of juvenile facilities, and he learned early that manipulation could keep him alive, a skill he would later perfect. His teenage years were marked by violence, escape attempts, and a growing distrust of authority. In reformatories, he endured physical abuse and humiliation. By 17, he was committing more serious crimes, auto theft, armed robbery, and spent years moving through various prisons. Manson developed a worldview where society was the enemy, and survival meant controlling others before they controlled you. When he wasn't in trouble, he studied people. He read books on psychology, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, and even Scientology materials. He was learning how to influence minds, not for good, but for power. In 1967, Manson was released from prison after serving most of a 10-year sentence. He told the parole board he didn't want to leave. Prison had become his home. But they let him go. He drifted to San Francisco during the height of the hippie movement. It was the summer of love, music festivals, psychedelic drugs, and a rejection of mainstream society. Manson reinvented himself as a guru-like figure, playing guitar and preaching about love and freedom. He gathered a small group of followers, mostly young women, who saw him as a wise, almost mystical leader. His charisma masked a dangerous intent. He believed society was corrupt and doomed, and he used drugs, group sex, and constant attention to break down his followers' individuality. He taught them that he was Jesus Christ reincarnated, and that the world was heading for a racial apocalypse, a prophecy he called Helter Skelter, inspired by a Beatles song. By 1968, the Manson family had moved to the Spahn movie ranch outside Los Angeles. The property's owner, George Spahn, allowed them to stay in exchange for chores and companionship. Life at the ranch was a mix of psychedelic trips, music, and strict obedience to Manson's will. Manson believed the Beatles were sending him secret messages through their White Album. He interpreted songs like Helter Skelter and Revolution 9 as proof of an impending race war. In his prophecy, Black Americans would win this war but be unable to govern themselves, and the Manson family would emerge from hiding to lead the new world. This apocalyptic vision would soon turn deadly. In July 1969, Manson sent family members to the home of music producer Gary Hinman, demanding money. When Hinman refused, he was tortured for days before being murdered. A few weeks later, Manson escalated. On August 8, 1969, he ordered 4 followers, Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian, to go to the home of actress Sharon Tate and totally destroy everyone in it. Sharon Tate, 8 months pregnant, and 4 others were brutally murdered. The next night, Manson himself accompanied his followers to kill supermarket executive Leno LaBianca and his wife, Rosemary. The murders shocked the nation. At first, police didn't connect the Tate and LaBianca murders. The case seemed unsolvable. No obvious motive, no clear suspects. The break came when members of the Manson family were arrested for unrelated car thefts and vandalism. In custody, Susan Atkins bragged about the murders to her cellmates, leading detectives straight to Manson. By late 1969, Manson and several followers were charged with multiple counts of murder. The trial began in 1970 and quickly became one of the most sensational in U.S. history. Manson carved an X into his forehead, later turning it into a swastika to show he had removed himself from the system. His followers camped outside the courthouse, shaving their heads and carving similar marks into their skin. Inside the courtroom, Manson disrupted proceedings with rants and threats. The evidence, including testimonies from former followers, painted a picture of complete mind control. In 1971, Manson and 3 others were sentenced to death. California later commuted these sentences to life in prison when the death penalty was briefly abolished. Manson spent the rest of his life behind bars. He continued to attract attention, giving strange, rambling interviews, spouting conspiracy theories, and occasionally attracting new admirers. He was denied parole repeatedly, considered too dangerous for release. On November 19, 2017, Charles Manson died at the age of 83. His life remains a disturbing case study in manipulation, control, and the dark side of charisma. The murders committed by his followers ended the 1960s dream of peace and love, replacing it with fear and mistrust. Charles Manson never killed anyone with his own hands, but his words and influence were weapons powerful enough to destroy lives. In the end, he wanted to be remembered, and he was, not as a prophet, not as a rock star, but as one of the most infamous cult leaders in history. A reminder that evil doesn't always come with a knife in hand. Sometimes it comes with a smile,